A man has been sentenced for a fatal stabbing that occurred in North London in June 2024. The sentencing at the Old Bailey concludes a criminal trial that followed a comprehensive police investigation into the death of Mohamed Abdi. The court proceedings have now finished, allowing for the full details of the case and its outcome to be reported. The case has concluded following a criminal trial held at the Old Bailey. Awad Abdel Samad was tried before a jury for the murder of Mohamed Abdi. A second defendant, Mahmood El Hazzaa, was tried alongside him on a separate charge of perverting the course of justice. Following the presentation of evidence and legal arguments from both the prosecution and the defense, the jury deliberated and returned their verdicts. The trial process, presided over by a senior judge, ensured that all evidence was scrutinized according to the established rules of criminal procedure. With the jury's verdicts delivered, the case moved to the sentencing phase for both convicted individuals, marking the formal end of the legal proceedings. The matter is now part of the public court record. The court heard that, on the evening of the incident, Mohamed Abdi sustained a single, fatal stab wound. The jury was told that the incident followed a brief confrontation in the Islington area. Emergency services were called to the scene, but despite their efforts, Mr. Abdi was pronounced dead. The cause of death was later formally confirmed by a post-mortem examination. The entire event unfolded over a very short period, but its consequences were irreversible, leading directly to the charges brought before the court. Following the incident, Awad Abdel Samad was arrested and subsequently charged with the murder of Mohamed Abdi. After standing trial at the Old Bailey, the jury found him guilty of the charge. The conviction for murder carries a mandatory life sentence in the United Kingdom. The jury reached its verdict after considering all the evidence presented during the trial, including witness testimony and forensic details. The finding of guilt established Mr. Abdel Samad's legal culpability for the death of Mohamed Abdi. A second defendant, Mahmood El Hazzaa, was also prosecuted in connection with the case. The investigation into Mohamed Abdi's death was conducted by detectives from the Metropolitan Police's Specialist Crime Command. The court was informed that officers undertook a detailed and methodical inquiry to establish the sequence of events leading to the fatal stabbing. This involved securing the crime scene, conducting forensic examinations, and gathering witness statements from individuals in the vicinity. The police operation was extensive, aiming to build a comprehensive evidential picture for the Crown Prosecution Service to consider. The thoroughness of the police work was a necessary precursor to the charges being brought and the subsequent trial. A critical component of the prosecution's case was the presentation of extensive CCTV evidence to the jury. Detectives had collated footage from numerous cameras in the area, which tracked the movements of both the victim and the defendants before, during, and after the incident. This footage was played in court and meticulously analyzed by both the prosecution and the defense. The jury was asked to consider what the recordings depicted regarding the actions and interactions of those involved. The CCTV provided a visual timeline that was central to the jury's understanding of how the events unfolded on the day of the killing. The trial was heard at the Central Criminal Court, known as the Old Bailey, which is the venue for the most serious criminal cases in London and the surrounding areas. The proceedings were overseen by a High Court judge, ensuring adherence to legal protocols. Both the prosecution, representing the Crown, and the defense teams for Mr. Abdel Samad and Mr. El Hazzaa presented their cases over a number of weeks. Witnesses were called to give evidence and were subject to cross-examination. The jury, composed of 12 members of the public, was responsible for determining the facts of the case and delivering verdicts based solely on the evidence they heard and saw in court. Following the jury's verdicts, the court proceeded to the sentencing phase of the case. The judge heard submissions from both the prosecution and the defense barristers regarding the appropriate sentences for the convictions. For the offense of murder, the sentence is fixed by law as life imprisonment. The key determination for the judge was the minimum term that Awad Abdel Samad must serve in custody before he can be considered for release by the parole board. For the conviction of assisting an offender, the judge had discretion in determining the appropriate sentence for Mahmood El Hazzaa, taking into account the specific facts of his involvement. A mandatory life sentence was imposed on Awad Abdel Samad for the murder of Mohamed Abdi. The judge set a minimum term of 22 years imprisonment. This means that Samad will not be eligible to apply for parole until he has served at least 22 years of his sentence. If and when he is released, he will remain on license for the rest of his life and can be recalled to prison if he breaches the conditions of his release. El Hazzaa was sentenced to a term of 3 years imprisonment for his role in assisting an offender. In passing the sentence, the presiding judge delivered detailed remarks explaining the legal reasoning behind the term imposed. The judge referred to the sentencing guidelines for murder, which require the court to determine a starting point for the minimum term based on the seriousness of the offence. Aggravating factors, such as the use of a weapon, were considered. The judge explained that the carrying and use of a knife in a public place was a significant factor in this case. The purpose of the minimum term is to reflect the principles of punishment and deterrence. The judge's sentencing remarks provide a formal, public record of the court's rationale for the sentence passed down. The conclusion of the sentencing hearing marks the end of the legal proceedings, in this case, with the Crown Court level. The verdicts and sentences are now a matter of public record. The case is therefore concluded and subject to the standard rules of reporting. The legal process has run its course, from the initial police investigation through to the final determination of sentence by the court. You've been watching Crime and Convictions UK, reporting UK crime. After conviction,